This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत
बजेगा भारत,
झूमेगा भारत.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, good morning, and a good day to all the viewers and listeners of Bharat FM Storytellers Cafe. Let me wish you all a very happy World Storytelling Day. Today is 21st of March, celebrated all over the world as World Storytelling Day. And the theme is New Beginnings. Well, keeping the theme in mind, I have a wonderful guest on the cafe today and all about new beginnings, fresh initiatives, starting anew. So, a very young storyteller guest who actually has 1 foot in the United States and 1 foot in Mumbai, India. And let's uncover and discover our guest as we converse and listen to her story. So let me introduce Avanti Nagral, my guest for tonight. Welcome, Avanti.
Namaste. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited for this.
I'm very excited to host you, and I'm just going to give a little trivia, a little bit about Bharat FM. As most of you know that we are springing ahead as we set our clocks forward by 1 hour, especially in the United States. So while you're watching this event, this session, so your time would be 11:30 a.m. in the United States. Well, as you know, Bharat FM is one of its kind multilingual, eclectic news, entertainment, and information radio station, serving Indian Americans as well as the wider Indian diaspora worldwide. Bharat FM simultaneously streams out of Phoenix, Chicago, and Cincinnati, as well as they conduct Facebook and Zoom live sessions. Well, welcome to Storytellers Cafe, and I'm your host, Usha Venkatraman. Today, my guest is Avanti Nagral. Avanti is a wonderful young woman whom I have known, I would say, for the last 10 to almost 12 years. When I knew her, she was a young girl who would be going to school and just lived at the corner of my street where I live. And never thought I would be talking to Avanti 10 years later. But it's a wonderful, wonderful surprise and a wonderful gift, I would say, on this day to bring Avanti as my guest on Storytellers Cafe because she has reinvented the narrative. And we will hear from Avanti as to what is your narrative? What's your story, Avanti?
Wow, we're starting with a big question, which I love. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. And I do have such fond memories of seeing you and your husband at the end of the street, when I would go to school. So it feels totally full circle and absolutely beautiful. I would say my narrative to anybody who doesn't know me is twofold. One is a lot of it is driven by duality of place. As Shaji mentioned, I have lived, half my life between the US and India, and I can share the tidbits to that as well. Of, I would say, mind, I would say I'm equally controlled by my left brain and my right brain. I'm very much in the creative spaces, but I also have, deep academic and intellectual passions. And part of what I love to do is combine those through song and story and conversation. And I think also I'm in my early 20s, and a lot of my audience is much younger than I am, is about almost a decade younger than I am. So, similar ages to when we would meet. And I also have a very strong relationship with my own family, including my grandparents, as well as a lot of people older. So kind of this bridging of generational gaps, if you will, through all these forms. And the second piece is my voice. You know, as a singer, I've been singing for many, many years. And today as an artist, I have the luxury of having a voice as a singing voice, as a storytelling voice, but also as a platform to use and be a voice for others. So to me, I'm happiest when I feel like I'm bridging places and things and people and using my voice in all its forms.
Wonderful, Avanti. Yes, because when I went through Avanti's profile, it says Avanti turns platforms into stages and stories into songs, often using her unique property, song on the spot. So this is something that I'm going to take advantage of, Avanti, if
Of course.
you if you're okay with it. And just want to tell all my viewers that Avanti has just graduated from Harvard School, Harvard University, and also twin majored. I mean, she also studied at the Berklee School of Music. This is wonderful. Congratulations on your graduation, Avanti. Can you tell us about? I know that you're juggling many things. And how did you juggle a twin degree? I know you're brilliant. Academically, you're brilliant.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. One thing I'm appreciative of is all over the world, you know, in the US, but also globally, Ajkal, there are many, many options to do these twin programs, you know, dual degree programs. So the way that my program worked is it's a dual bachelor's, master's, or bachelor's diploma program where you get an undergrad degree at Harvard, the same way any other undergrad student is there, and then you get either a master's degree or a diploma at Berklee. So during your 4 years of undergrad, you also take classes at Berklee, and that can be as little or as much as you want because you get access to everything. So that meant me having done my middle and high school in Bombay and, you know, being swept up in the Bombay Jugaad, I was like, how can I get my paisa vasool? How can I get my return on investment and really soak in everything from both institutions? So, you know, I was like a mad woman constantly between the two schools. And at the time, I was also, you know, performing professionally. So I would be in New York most weekends, or I'd be flying back to India. So my parents would always complain that whenever they talked to me, I was on a bus or walking or on a plane. So they'd always hear, you know, the engine noise. But no, I think, you know, to do anything, right, whatever it might be that you're passionate about, you make time for things that you're passionate about. And to me, I loved both those places, the institutions, and what I was learning. And I love learning. So for me, I just saw it as an opportunity to meet incredible people from all over the world. And, you know, doing these kinds of programs is a commitment. You do have to sacrifice on other things. So maybe I didn't have as many typical college experiences in the forms of partying and things of that nature, but that was something I was very clear about, you know, from the get-go in any case. And I just love the fact that there's more opportunities. So if you are a parent watching this, for example, or if you're somebody who's thinking of applying to college, you don't have to think of just one space or one box that exists. There's more of these programs. For example, Brown and the Rhode Island School of Design have a dual degree program. Columbia and Juilliard have a dual degree program. And there's more and more of these existing. You can dual major at your college. So, you know, pursue your interdisciplinary interests if you have more than one passion, because it is possible and jobs are being created every day, including by us ourselves, that we can combine them.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm sure that is quite an information for all the viewers, especially the youngsters who are planning their study abroad. Berklee School of Music is based out of Boston.
It is based out of Boston, yes.
Okay.
So they were only half an hour apart, and actually I was the first person to graduate from this program, so it was very new. So I was the guinea pig. So if anyone has any questions about this, you can feel free to reach out to me on any form of social media. I'm happy to answer.
And also, viewers, do check out Avanti Nagral's YouTube. You will see that how she advises people on life at Harvard. How do you apply to undergrad schools? And she's a wealth of information. It's wonderful. Like, I thought I was one of those mothers who masterminded or strategized how her kids got into the Ivy League schools. It kind of calls for a strategy, but then it needs a little bit of planning, right?
100.
Whether you call it strategy or planning, preparedness, to be prepared for that. Avanti, I know that you took a gap year after high school, but I knew that you were already getting quite famous in your senior school in the 11th and the 12th grade. You were taking part in programs, you were giving concerts and everything. How did you juggle this with your studies? Because that was happening simultaneously. And
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And it's so a few things. One is as I mentioned earlier, have been singing for a lot of my life, right? I started out when I lived in the US doing bhajans and devotional music. Then, because my dad, in addition to being an entrepreneur, plays the tabla. So I had that, ghar ka mahal kind of around. And then when I moved to India, I moved to Bombay, I started training in Indian classical music, and I learned under Dr. Prabhatre. And then the school that I went to, the one that Ushaji's mentioning, was a Christian school. So had a lot of exposure to kind of church music and choral music. So it was this eclectic space. And part of when I was in school, I would say around when I was 16 or 17, I also got really into theater and started performing at local theater productions and national theater productions, mostly as a singer. And it was really fun, really hard to juggle with school for sure, because not only do you have your studies, but you also have many extracurriculars. And I, was really interested in many other things. So I was pursuing initiatives. So it was just a lot. I would say high school was a crazy, crazy time. But again, I truly just believe that you make time for things you love. And, I will not lie in the sense that obviously part of it was trying to maximize opportunities for me as an individual, me to potentially get into college and all of these other things together. But I truly saw college, if I'm being honest, as a stepping stone to life. So for me, even though getting into a good college was really, really important, I didn't want it to end there. There's a lot of people who will do 10 things just to get into a college, and then those passions end. To me, I was like, how can I push myself, hopefully get into a good college, but also keep growing these things at the same time, which is why I pushed myself early on, because I knew, especially in the artistic spaces, you have to start early, or you have to explore in that time, So it was a lot. And then, as you mentioned to the gap year, I had the opportunity to play this role. It was the role of Agnes in Agnes of God. And it came to me right about when I was graduating and leaving my high school. And it was an acting and singing role. But I really loved the messaging of the show. And I just figured, hey, I won't have this kind of time again where I am obligation free, right? I was not responsible for any other individual. And I just really wanted to give it a shot. I had always seen music and performance as a passion, but never as a potential profession. And so for me, having the opportunity to do that show through my gap year was amazing. Alongside, I was doing some work in the global health space, which we can talk about as well. But it was just an amazing time to really, I would say, find my voice, find my passion for performance, and develop it in a way that I could see a career path in it, as opposed to it just being this thing that I did. And again, if I'm being very honest today, the other reason is I was burnt out after high school. I was doing so much, and often on this rat race of life, hame lagta hai ki school, then college, then job, then marriage, then kids, then die, right? And I'm not trying to be morbid, but we don't have to be stuck on this path that society has carved out for us. We can take control of that and really go at our own pace and at our own time. So for me, the gap year, among doing all of these things and exploring, was also a time for me to reset, kind of check in with my own mental health, spend time with family in a way that I hadn't been able to during high school because it was so busy. So I loved it, and I would highly recommend taking time off from institutionalism. It doesn't mean that you're not doing anything, but it means that you are not just falling into the trap ki magajmari karni hai, and you're in that space of trying to move from institution to institution, company to company, and really reflecting on yourself. So Yeah.
Very, very well said. Very well said, Avanti. This is what I want to convey to all our viewers and listeners, that in one so young, that such wisdom dawns. And I know you have the support of your wonderful family, your
Yes.
parents, your grandparents, your brother. Um, so this is lovely. What you said is the mental health. Before we go on to the mental health, and I want to also tell you that voice is one of the major tools that a storyteller has. The
Mhm.
storyteller uses their voice to convey, to communicate. And I know for you, voice is a powerful medium to convey. And also want to tell the viewers that Avanti was nominated for the best actress in a leading role for Agnes, the theatre award, right?
Yes.
And also you have so many accomplishments, Avanti. I do want to talk about your performance at the United Nations, your TEDx talk early in 2016 when you were still a teenager, I guess.
Yeah, I just
Uh,
turned 18.
yeah, so we will come to that. And I know that you graduated in public health. And one of your videos, which I saw on Instagram,
Mhm.
uh, by the way, Avanti is an Instagram sensation. Do check out her Instagram handle. You brought out a song on mental health. And it is so apt. Was that something that you worked on during the pandemic, the last year? So
So
you can talk about, yes. So,
no, of course. Thank you so much. So the song you're referring to is a song of mine. It's an original called Suntolo, which we put out a couple months ago. And for me, I've put out, I would say, about 6 or 7 original songs at this point, over the past few years I've been releasing. And it's really important, kind of in theme with what we're talking about today, that each of my songs has a story or a connection to an emotion. So many of them are based on themes around, whether it's mental health with Suntolo, for example, or whether it is gender equity and love and gratefulness and gratitude. So there's always that gamut. With Suntolo, it was actually my first Hindi original. I sing in Hindi, but I'd always been a little underconfident releasing in Hindi, because you need to have that vocabulary and that connection. But I was able to collaborate with the most incredible people. I found this incredible poet from Jaipur who also happens to be a singer-songwriter, and we wrote this together, and it turned out to be something that has impacted a lot of people. For me personally, as Ushaji mentioned, I studied psychology and global health in college, and I studied a lot about mental health as well. But during the pandemic, it's no secret that everybody's mental health has been up and down. And I saw it happening with younger and younger people as well, and that they had no outlet. And at the end of the day, all we want is for somebody to listen to us without judgment. And then proceeding further, if necessary, we can get help. But often we need that safe space, and we weren't getting that in the same way. So Suntolo is that. It's a plea to anybody and everybody to just please listen without judgment. And I've used this in a musical sense, this call and response technique, where we have Suntolo and then we have responses, common responses from society. So things like kuch nahi hua hai, ye tera wahm hai, muskura ke dekho, which people will say. People will say, if somebody says, I am dealing with something, often you will be hit back, particularly in our cultural realm, with, oh, nothing's happened, just try smiling. What will people say? Log kya kahenge? So it's trying to just embody all of that together. And we, put out a music video for that, which we tried to touch upon different narratives of life, meaning we tried to show different classes, different backgrounds and ages. And then we put out a video with a lot of Gen Z creators, Gen Z being, I guess, my birth year and younger, so, 97 and younger. And it was a really powerful and beautiful message. And we partnered with a lot of mental health organizations to provide resources, access to therapy, access to counseling. So it's been a really, really meaningful project. And for me, with a lot of the other music I have coming out this year and next, we are always about trying to build resources and create that for young people, because I know I wish I had that when I was a teenager. So immediately it's almost like doing it for a younger self and seeing that impact. So yes, all of that is fully meaningful to me in all of those ways.
Wonderful, Avanti. I was also reading while you were talking that you work a lot with the confidence of youngsters, and that is so wonderful. You're already giving back to society. And when you spoke about this call and response song, we also in storytelling, the initial, in the formative years with children, you start with a call and response story.
Exactly.
That's the best way, most effective way, and I'm sure it works in songs as well. This is wonderful, what you're doing, and if you feel up to it, you want to sing a few lines of Suntolo, it'll be lovely. So do you have a team of people? Do you have a music team, let's say, a band with you? Is it a band, or are you single? Are you?
So I'm a solo artist in that capacity, but I do have bands. I have a band in India, I have a band in the US, and we have musicians we collaborate with all across the world. For every song, I try to collaborate with new people. Some are the same. So, for example, there's something called a mixing and mastering engineer, which is the person who puts the finishing touches and makes sure the levels sound great. So him, I keep consistent across all my music because I want it to sound similar in that same space. But otherwise, we love to collaborate with younger talent, people from different spaces. So this was a really beautiful song to work on. And in terms of a team, right, you are nothing without a team. I know all of you are working on this incredible show, and so many people are going into that. So I have a management team. My manager is based out of New York, and I have somebody who runs my India ops. And we work with different people, right? In both creative spaces, we have all these different people, and I love collaborating with people and growing together. So to me, it's always amazing, and I'm super happy to sing a couple lines. I'm going to try to pull up the music in the background so we can at least give you a little bit of that feel.
Sure.
Just give me a moment.
Sorry, I sprung that on you.
No, that's okay. We are always ready. We have to be. एक बात कहनी थी पर थोड़ी सहमी थी कह दूं तो क्या होगा सोचा बहुत रोका सब कुछ रुआसा है धुंधला धुआं सा है लड़ने को दिल रोता पर अब नहीं होता सुन तो लो कुछ नहीं हुआ है सुन तो लो ये तेरा वहम है सुन तो लो सुन तो लो ओ सुन तो लो ठीक लग रही हो सुन तो लो मुस्कुरा के देखो सुन तो लो सुन तो लो. There's just a couple lines. You can hear the rest on any streaming platform or on YouTube. But yeah, I really enjoyed creating that song.
Beautiful. I love it. I just loved it. This lyrics you wrote yourself, Avanti?
So
Beautiful.
as I mentioned, I collaborated with an incredible poet and songwriter from Jaipur. His name is Mohit Kaur, and he's incredible. And he was able to, we co-composed it, but for the lyrics, I really wanted to nail the right word choice and the right vocabulary to connect. And we did our research, right? Because it was important. So we found a lot of videos with resources about mental health, because it was important that we weren't trying to be preachy and that we weren't sharing misinformation. And we just wanted it to be as universal as possible. So I had a lovely time working on this, and collaboration is beautiful and key, according to me.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this out. What a beautiful song. And what soul stirring lyrics, and so uh, beautifully rendered. It's like soft. It's like just water,
Yeah,
slightly rippling. Beautiful, lovely. Thank you so much.
of course.
Avanti, I want to maybe backtrack to 2016. I guess that Hinduja was your first TEDx talk,
Yes.
um, which I was watching, and there you share a very personal story of yours. And there also you address about health. Health is one of your, I guess it's your subject, you know, and mental health, of course, comes under it, and also regular health is
Of
also
course.
part of it. Can you tell us a little bit about the TED talk that you
Of
gave?
course, of course. That was such an incredible experience to have. And one thing that was really dear to me during my high school time and continues today, but more in an artistic capacity, is working in the space of health, global health, and public health, and trying to provide resources and access for young people. And for two reasons. One, so I have had personal relation to health, physical and mental, for all of my life. All my grandparents are doctors, my aunt and uncle are doctors. So I'm surrounded by that space and that profession. But I also personally have gone through a lot of health issues in my life. I was born with a hole in my heart. They didn't think I would survive, until after a few years. Unfortunately, actually, when my brother was born, the atrial ventral septum actually closed up naturally, so it was cool. And through life, I've had many other kind of ups and downs. Another major one being when I was about 16, 15. I temporarily lost eyesight in my left eye. This was right before my 10th board exams. And if anybody here has done any schooling, or agar aapke paas koi cousins hai or family who's done schooling in India, you know that these big board exams are a big deal. And it was a really scary time. Basically, I'd had a brain virus that had demyelinated my tissue. So the myelin sheath, the coating that allows for the synapses, the electrical synapses in our brain, if you will, to move very fast, had been removed because of this virus. So, as a result, my vision was very blurry. And it came back, but it took a long time. And as it is, my eyesight was pretty bad. I wore, glasses for many years. So it was a very scary time because it also affected aspects of my memory, and rebuilding that and just rebuilding things was not fun. The recovery was hard, and part of what got me through the recovery was music and was creative expression. So, both of them have always been interlinked for me. But I think it also gave me a strong perspective of, I had these major exams coming up, but that wasn't the be all end all, right? Life was. And so I think it gave me a little bit more grounding and a little bit more perspective at a young age, which hopefully I'm carrying through. And it made me really passionate about, if music could have that effect for me, can it potentially have that effect for so many others? And that's kind of where that journey of intertwining the two started. But, to anybody who's dealing with anything, it's not easy to deal with it when you're younger or even older. At any point, the thing with health, which I noticed a lot, was it didn't just affect me, it affected my family, it affected people around me, right? Because people care about you and your well-being. So just building and developing that empathy was really important. And, today, one of the biggest things is mental health, which all of us deal with. And mental health is not disease, it's not illness, it's a spectrum, right? We all have ups and downs, and the same way in which we exercise or eat right to keep our physical health up, we need to do things to invest in our mental health as well. And it truly has become a worldwide issue. So any of these things to come through and to empower, to me, is really, really important. So that's part of my own personal journey, part of why I studied it in college, and why, to me, empowering youth with skills like CPR, talking about mental health, talking about sexual health and sex education is really, really important, because it makes a huge difference to how one lives and leads their life and their societal and cultural awareness. So yeah, that's a little bit about that.
Yes, I do remember that phase in life when you were in the 10th grade and you had the issue with your eyesight. I remember. God bless you, Avanti. You have crossed all the, or, climbed over all those insurmountable problems, the roadblocks that came your way. And like you said, music was your anchor, your
Yeah.
go to, and then I wouldn't say reinvented, you began again. New beginnings. It was not the
Mhm.
end. And as today's theme for World Storytelling Day is new beginnings, I want to tell all the listeners, viewers who are listening, who are seeing this program, just to say that this is truly inspirational. I mean, I think take comfort that nothing can put you down.
Yeah.
You can definitely bridge anything in your life and go to the other side. And also, I was looking at your bio, Avanti. What really stood out is your music bridges social impact and aims to reclaim the way young girls see themselves around the world. I think that's a very, very key aspect and something very important an issue today.
Totally.
And how did you're so young yourself, you're just in your early 20s, you're a young woman, but to have such maturity and to have such um, values and to talk about this through music, um, was that something somebody impacted you, somebody who was your inspiration in your life, or uh, what was it?
Yeah, well, to some degree, yes. So I'm an older sister. I have a younger brother, and I would say I very much wear that identity on my sleeve. The identity of being a didi, and just having seen. I love sibling relationships and I love family relationships, and just having seen that relationship of my own and the way in which I had the potential of having so much impact on my brother, particularly around how he saw women, right? In terms of how he understood, say, periods and women's health, how he understood consent and sex, how he understood just the way in which the world works, if you will, and so many people who don't have that. Um, I know that for me, when I was a teenager, I wish that I had that, right? I had somebody to almost guide or show me some sort of a path. And it didn't have to be a mentor or role model per se, but just somebody who had been through those life experiences and maybe had benefit of exposure. So for me, that was one very important aspect. And then the other is today's generation, Gen Z, they're growing up in a world where everything is on the internet. They're interfacing with each other through that, especially during COVID. That's how they've been talking to teachers. That's how they've been talking to everybody. And there's a lot of good and a lot of bad that comes with that, right? And so recognizing that that is the medium. But how do you create spaces where people feel safe, a safe space for people to share? How do you build community? And so for me, that was always really, really, really important. And just knowing that, particularly as a young girl, as a young human, to be honest, a lot of those experiences you have in your teen years mold the way you see the world, the way in which you think about your body and your own body image, the way in which you have relationships with people, whether that's your parents or your friends or teachers or romantic relationships, and how that affects you. So for me, just trying to bring any knowledge and exposure I had or have at an age where, sure, I'm still, not too far off from that age myself, but that I think that is why it works, or it's as incredibly important, because I'm not too far off to be aged out for them, if that makes sense. I'm not in the auntie stage for sure, but not too far enough that I'm not relatable. And so trying to find that balance where it's like, hey, I was just there a few years ago, and here's some things I learned. Hopefully you find them helpful. And if I don't know something about an issue, here are people I can bring to share about that, right? So I'm very intentional about bringing people on to talk about issues where I personally am not equipped, or trying to empower communities and creative spaces to to build that.
Thank you, Avanti. Very well spoken. Very well spoken. Avanti, I want to actually fast forward and talk about your concert, your performance at the UN, and any other notable performances or festivals that you have been to that you would like to share with our viewers and our audiences.
Of course. So that was such a beautiful experience. I believe that was in 2019. And I'd been invited, it was on International Day of the Girl, and I'd been invited to speak and perform at the UN for that occasion, but kind of as a young global representative, if you will, so I was kind of representing India in some capacity and also this younger voice. And it was really beautiful. We were having panels and discussions with a few other young ambassadors from some countries, but also with people particularly in the media. And we were trying to focus on the impact of media on women and girls. And it was such a wonderful conversation because, we just have to adapt to a new world. I, for example, as we've talked about, was exploring artistic expression, music and theater and everything, but at a time where I didn't have to attach it to media in the same way. Traditional media existed, but social media didn't exist in the same way. So for me, I was able to perform in spaces and not have to worry about people commenting online about that, right? But today, that's just everywhere and it's so pervasive. So having that conversation, talking about the difference between traditional media, social media, the pros, the cons, and everything was beautiful. And, I essentially performed a small piece honoring women as well. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I hope that more and more global forums bring people together for that. I would say another memorable, I've had several and very grateful for that, both in India, in the US, and also performed in some parts of Southeast Asia. But I would say my most memorable was actually in 2017 or 18. This was in Mumbai at the Gateway of India, which is a national monument, and it was for the 26/11 terror attack memorial. We had a terror attack in 2008 in India on the 26th of November, and it was to honor and commemorate the lives that were lost. It happened around that area as well. And my nani, my maternal grandmother, had passed away, but all my other grandparents were alive, and it was the first time they'd all seen me perform actually in a meaningful way, because it didn't make sense to bring them to, say, a club or another kind of show, because it wouldn't have meant something to them. And my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, that is, my dadaji, or we used to call him Baba, passed away last year, almost exactly a year ago. And in his later years, kind of right after this concert and to that, he started losing his memory and had dementia. But that's the one thing he would remember. And he was so proud of that moment because to him, the Gateway of India meant something. What I was singing there, what I was standing for meant something. And so he would so proudly talk about that and so proudly. And this was a man who tried to force being a doctor on his kids, would talk about that only, but just him seeing a small beacon of impact that something creative, something artistic could have, left that memory and impression on him. And it was amazing. So to me, that's, I would say, one of the most memorable experiences because it was for something so beautiful, so meaningful. And we had, for example, a lot of these ambassadors from different countries who were there as well. And we did this whole balloon ceremony where we released a lot of balloons in the air. And it was just really beautiful in commemorating that. And a lot of public was there as well. But to me, it was special because, I was able to include my grandparents in my life. And now my two remaining grandparents, my Aji, or my paternal grandma, and my Nanaji, my maternal grandma, it's been really fun trying to involve them in other things, which we can talk about more in the storytelling space. But to me, that's been really meaningful.
Thank you, Avanti, for sharing that. What has been pressing in my mind that you're so grounded, you're young, you're grounded. And from where I come from, you're an internet sensation, you're an Instagram sensation. And I just want you to, what advice would you give not only to young, but there are others I know who fall prey to the social media and, life can be either cruel or life can be taxing if you don't get that many likes and this doesn't happen. How does one maintain one's equanimity in the social media, especially for a celebrity like you? You got to stay grounded. I mean,
Yes.
it's the most important thing, to plant your feet firmly. So what would you?
100%. No, I completely agree. And it's a crazy world to be in, right? Because everybody's prey to that in some capacity. Even if you run a business today, much of it has to be present online. And then if you don't get the same kind of engagement, it feels bad. And I was going to say something that I wasn't sure was loud on TV. So it's just really hard to balance that, right? And one thing that's worked for me, I was in a place last year at the beginning of the pandemic, where social media for me felt like a chore. It felt like, okay, I'm a musician trying to do this and I have to do social media. So therefore I have to post this thing and I have to be regular. And I knew all the be consistent, be authentic, blah, 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 all the stuff you will be reading about or you must have been told. But it wasn't in a space where I enjoyed it. And it was only actually the middle of last year, the middle of 2020, when I started doing a lot of other content that I felt happy in a place where I felt like I was engaging and building something. I think the perspective is really not focusing on it as a selfish tool, but rather as a community building tool. Because for me, the preconception was always I had to be more established as a musician or as an artist, and then people would care about my personality. But today, because the online world has made it so easy to access people, people care about your personality as well as everything that you do. And they care about you being authentic and real online. So for me, whether that was talking about, education, talking about more life and lifestyle oriented things, or having these important conversations around things that matter, once I started feeling that I was able to build community, and it was hard, right? It's not like it means it's going to grow immediately. Growth doesn't happen like this. It happens very much like this, and it's hard. And that's in anything that you're doing that is self-sustaining or self-employed, right, in a capacity. It's just knowing that you're doing it for the right reasons or having a reason to do it and not feeling like a chore and not feeling like a selfish tool. And also knowing that there's a difference between real, REEL, and real, REAL life. And so having people in your actual life to ground you and who you can surround yourself with to know that that might matter and the metrics are important to some degree, but they don't define who you are as a human being. So just that fine line, between the human you are and the brand you're trying to build.
Totally agree with you on that. Yes, I just want to share this little thing about this reel, REEL,
Yeah.
and the Instagram story or a post. So my colleague said, I need a 30-second reel from each one of you.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what was that, because the social media is changing their vocabulary, I guess, every week or every second day. So I was just wondering what's wrong with this young woman who's saying real. It doesn't even make sense. Then I went on to Instagram because I do go and see, let me educate myself, is what is there. Then I said real. It was written there, REEL. I said, oh my, is that what it was about? So keeping pace with the change that happens every second day, it's taxing, maybe for a woman of my age. So Avanti, you're doing a wonderful job. I wanted to ask you next about, I know you're grounded, you do take care of your presence in the social media in such a way that it doesn't get to you. Have you ever felt that you needed to reinvent yourself, reinvent your music, or present it in a different way?
Oh, for sure. Almost all the time. And when I say that, I mean, there has to be something that is a unique grounding thread through it. So at the current moment, I'm very happy being in this space where I feel like it's being created primarily for young people, has this space that it's combining with social impact. But all the time, for me to put out my first Hindi song was very scary, and I'm working on several more Hindi, several more English, and a few regional language things as well. Even online, right? The transition from last March to this March for me personally has been huge, because even if it may not feel like a reinvention to the outside world, in my mind, my relationship with it was reinvented, and that is so important. And there's definitely a school of thought which is like, okay, if you want to be in music, you should do primarily only that kind of content. But I've enjoyed doing all of this other stuff, and I think one of the aspects of reinvention comes from your surroundings and comes from collaboration. So I've met incredible content creators across so many different spaces, right? You have people who are vlogging full-time, you have people who are comedians full-time, magicians full-time. And it's been so inspiring for me to surround myself with these people, collaborate with them, because you learn so much, right? And you also learn that everyone is amazing and everyone's also kind of human and normal. So it's important to have, both of those things in mind. And if you want to reinvent yourself, if you want to have a new beginning, you can always do that at any point. One of the things I love about being an artist, being a conversationalist, a storyteller, a speaker, whatever you might want to call it, is the fact that you can always have something new or respin something in a new way. I'm likely going to be putting out a project as opposed to a single. So when you release songs, you either do them single releases or you do them as an album or an EP, which is like a mini album. So we'll likely have a mini album coming out sometime this year. And for that, I'm very, very excited to build a world for it and kind of reinvent a bunch of things because of the themes around it. So to me, it keeps me on my toes and excited. But honestly, I feel like you can do that with anything today. And the fast-paced movement of technology and social media and whatever it might be allows for us to all have that fresh new beginning and new start if we want to. So I think it's cool.
It's cool. It's cool to listen to you, and you put it so beautifully about new beginnings. Very well spoken, Avanti. Kudos to you. Bravo. Avanti, I want to move on by asking, what's your future plan as regards to, I don't know whether I'm wrong or right. I stand corrected, whether you plan to study medicine or what are your future plans? And also with the music, with your singing career. And also wanted to ask you, any story that you heard when you were young or something that has impacted you. And if you do remember, would you like to share it with our viewers?
Of course.
Or it could be a story in a song as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, stories are everywhere, right? They're happening at every moment. I think, so as regard to my future plans, because I'm sure, we have a lot of South Asian folk who are like, but beta kya kar rahe ho? Like, what is your future plan? So for the longest time, I did think I might go to grad school or continue my education further, and maybe at some point that might happen in the future. But I realized very quickly as things started growing that I can have a direct impact to somebody's heart and soul and mind through this medium. And I love doing that, so what I once thought in my later teenage years, I would be doing something in the global health space and combine the arts. Today, I'm an artist first, and I'm able to share these messages and see that impact in real time. And I love that. And, fortunately, because these are becoming more and more established industries, of course, as a full-time musician, you can, make a full career out of it. It's tough, but you can. One of the things that was taken away from us in 2020, however, was live performances, which I love being on stage and I absolutely miss that, but hopefully soon when things are a little bit more calm. But as a content creator today, right, you are essentially building a brand, and the brand is also yourself. And so it's a really tedious task, but you're able to build that and constantly be in that space. And I'm, in a very grateful position that I've been able to monetize that in a way that it's going to continue building. I'm always about still creating those opportunities and spaces, right? So I see myself reinventing myself every few years. I've always had a dream to do something that is whether that might be one day perhaps building a hospital or starting a nonprofit or something in that capacity, which allows to manifest, or maybe even building an app. Like all of these things are future dreams, which I know the bigger that I grow as a brand, if you will, the more manifestation they'll be able to have. But one project I'm working on right now, which I'm very excited about, is we're actually launching, and y'all are some of the first people to know. So yeah, this is the first time I'm talking about it, actually. We are launching a studio, if you will, in Mumbai, and we're calling it Dream Space. And the purpose of Dream Space is to be all at once a community, co-working, and creative space for anybody who has a dream that they would like to build, right? So that we will have full service musical end-to-end capabilities. So that's recording, production, mixing, and mastering. We will have full service videography and of different types, right? As Ushaji was mentioning today, people are asking for shorter form content, whether that's a reel or whether that's many of these things. And there isn't, I would say physical spaces aren't keeping up to being able to provide for that. So this space is going to be very open. It'll allow for you to, if you're in the spaces of dance or videography or photography or fashion or events or art, really anything, you can create and build in the space. And we want to make it accessible, because spaces like this that do exist either are in one of these artistic spaces or are extremely exclusive, because you have to be a member or you have to be of a certain caliber, a certain number of subscribers, a certain number of audience. But we wanted this to be a space where anybody can dream, no matter how small or big. So I'm excited to launch this soon. We should be up and running hopefully in May, and then for more commercial and global use when it's safer with the pandemic. So hopefully later in 2021. But yeah, and continuing to work on projects like these, initiatives like these. And it's truly just all of it's come from learning. All of this has come from me being now deeply entrenched in the creator ecosystem and seeing that gap. One of the other gaps that I see is just lack of safe spaces for young people. And so, we have some things underway in those spaces. So to me, I just see it as a world of opportunity, and always knew that I was going to be self-employed and in those spaces. So I'm very excited in the artistic and business spaces to keep growing.
Yes, like I said, new beginnings.
Yeah, exactly.
Fresh starts. Yeah, lovely. I wish you all the best on this endeavor of yours, and I'm sure it'll be a wonderful success. Maybe I too might use your services to record a story.
Yes, we would love that.
Yes, Avanti. And as the time is ticking away, I just wanted to ask you whether would you like to share a story or a song? How would you like to close this? Such an interesting, such a eye-opening, a wonderful, comfortable, a feeling of camaraderie. It's like, talking to my young daughter, talking to a good friend. Maybe I wouldn't say daughter, because I guess mother and daughter, my daughter would disagree. But I stand corrected on so many things that, beta, ab tum kya karoge? Aage kya padhai karoge? That was my question. I stand corrected. I'm going to get a lot of, knock on my head because I asked that question.
That's okay. It's natural. It's natural.
But that's the kind of mental, upbringing that I come from. I have to kind of tell myself, remove yourself. Things are changing, new beginnings. Right?
Exactly. No, I'm so happy that you're amenable to that. In fact, I can end with a story, if you will, and it can be kind of connected to these pieces, and also bridging these generations, right? So my grandmother, who I've mentioned earlier, my dad's mom, my Aji, she is an inspiring woman. She is a doctor, and a female doctor, her generation, grew up in a village in Maharashtra, moved to Bombay, just very, very inspiring all around. Luckily, she had another sister, and both her parents were very supportive of girls completing their education at a time in which that generation was not as supported, particularly for that gender. So really strong family background in that capacity. She married my grandfather, who was from a very different caste than her, who she is extremely fair-skinned, he was extremely dark-skinned, and the pressure they both had, what she had to put up with, it was a long and arduous journey for their love story, if you will. And those are such inspiring pieces, and she has been a guiding light in my life, and all my grandparents really were. I bring this up because I felt grateful to be raised by generations who had love marriages, right? Who were educated and believed in educating women. And one thing I appreciate about her today, which I see in amazing ways, and she embodies new beginnings, is her openness to learning about new generations. So after my grandfather passed away, every Saturday she would come over. She lives 10 minutes away from where we do, and we would watch a Marathi film. She's Maharashtrian, or we would watch a web series. And she would choose all the Marathi films because we weren't as well versed, and they were always about really interesting topics. Like there was one about generational differences where the grandfather was quoting Game of Thrones. There was one about drug abuse. There was one about this kind of raunchy love story, and I was like, go grandma, she's bringing these to the table and she's open to learning. And that's the beauty, in my opinion, of media and entertainment, because it allows you to move with the times as well. And we watched this one show, which is one of my favorites. It's called Bandish Bandits. And we watched it, and I just loved her interjections. She'd be like, I think he's going to kiss her. Or, she would have all these little interjections at the plot moments. I'm like, I think she is invested in this and open. So one day I just said, hey, Aji, are you okay with me showing you something? And I'm just having a conversation about it. And is it okay if I record this? So she's like, yeah, chill. So she and I went, and I just phone, camera, put it on the side, and I had her watch these two music videos. They were called WAP and Anaconda. If you are not familiar with them, you can go check them out. They're by Cardi B and Nicki Minaj, and they're really cool, and they stand for interesting messages, but they're also very sexual and very out there, which a lot of people wouldn't approve of. And I had her watch them, and we immediately started having conversations around women, around empowerment, around objectification, around consent. And it was such a beautiful conversation. And that video actually blew up. It has today more than, I think, 1.5 million views. You can check it out on YouTube. And of course, we got both adulation and hate for it, but mostly adulation, and mostly from young people who literally, I've had so many people write to me saying, this was amazing. I love, everyone has now adopted her as their national grandma, or their internet grandma, if you will. But saying, I was able to show this to my family and have them understand things I've been wanting to express for so long. Because it wasn't just a young 20-something, Western-influenced, educated, English-speaking girl who was talking about it. It was that with a Maharashtrian, Marathi-speaking grandmother, being able to bridge that gap 60-something years apart. And I think that's what appealed. And to me, it's just been so beautiful to have that as a new beginning in my life, to be able to bring in this older generation in a way that I never thought I could, right? For the longest time, my grandparents would always ask me, so medicine kar rahi hai, what's happening after this? And that same, mindset of, what is school? What's next? What's the job? How are you getting paid? Now she sees the impact. She understands. I get brand deals today, some of which request for me to do things with my grandma, and she's loving it. She did a cameo in one of my music videos. She's excited to learn how to advertise a product together. And to me, it's a recent story, but it's been fun, and it's been really, really exciting to see how age doesn't matter, mindset does, and how you are willing to move and change with the times. And I think it's really cool what all of you are doing as well, being able to share stories and storytellers platforms, because we don't necessarily think of a storyteller or storytelling as a profession, but most professions incorporate that, and being a storyteller within itself is also a profession today. So it's awesome to see what all of you are doing here at Bharat, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Avanti. I love that. Age doesn't matter, mindset matters. That is the new beginning, my friends. That is the new beginning. Let's change our mindset. And I have to end this with just listing Avanti's achievements or the impact that she has made on the world. She's the first South Asian artist to be nominated at the Boston Music Awards. Yes, Pop Artist of the Year, Song of the Year award. She has 8 million plus number of views across the social media platforms. At the age of 18, Avanti was nominated for the Best Actress at the Indian National Theatre Awards. 40 plus number of motivational speeches that Avanti has given, including 2 TEDx performances since 2016. 60,000 plus number of followers on social media and 100 plus number of live shows and events across India, Southeast Asia, US since 2016.
Yeah.
Okay,
The social
now,
media number fortunately has grown quite a bit since that number. We're
yeah,
at 300,000. No, but that's okay. But thank you so much. That means a lot.
yeah, I mean, I wanted to, I saw that and I said, oh God, I have to say this. I have to bring this. So thank you, Avanti. God bless you. You are, the way you have, flowered in front of my eyes, like, it's wonderful to see somebody doing so well and so grounded, so mature, and so much steeped in our values. And you haven't forgotten what family is all about. And you're also thinking about community, about women, about mental health, and rewriting the narrative through your songs and empowering people. Thank you so much, and more power to you. Storytellers Cafe is very, very happy to have hosted you on the occasion of New Beginnings, World Storytelling Day.
Well, I wish everybody a very happy World Storytelling Day. Make sure everything is a story. And if you feel like you're not a storyteller, you can be. It's just about bringing that together. But truly, thank you so much for having me. It means a lot. And to anybody watching, you can come find me at Avanti Nagral pretty much anywhere. Feel free to drop a message and say hi. And we're happy to share resources as well. So sending lots of love. And thank you, Shaji, for having me. It means a lot.
Thank you. As you all know, my friends, this is a recorded conversation, and this will be premiered on 21st. So please drop in your comments on the chat box, and I will be, of course, setting out in the coming week all about Avanti's social handles. Definitely take a look, and you can directly connect with her. Thank you. And Avanti, I have a last job is to play the jingle, and then we slowly get out of the studios. So you come here. Yeah, thank you so much, and God bless you. God bless
Thank you so much.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.